What's up, y'all? Okay, so this is the first episode of Let's Get Uncomfortable. Actually, this is more like the first official podcast episode. But let's talk about my story and what inspired me to do Let's Get Uncomfortable in the first place. Alright, so first thing I want to talk about is, like I said, my story. I want to touch on the power of the voice. Essentially, I grew up in an environment where I felt like my voice didn't matter. So, in terms of me speaking my truth and me speaking on how I feel and me being like a really outspoken, loud, outgoing kid, I felt like I didn't actually get to be that. I felt like at times I got to hide or had to hide because learned at a very young age that you're just a kid, stay in a kid's place. You know how that goes within the black household. And I'm not talking about every black household, but majority of us know what I'm talking about. So in this episode, like I said, I want to just touch on what inspired me to get into this podcasting and this platform in the first place. So I started with Voices for the Voiceless because I felt that way. You know, constantly being bullied in and outside of school made me feel powerless. And going through emotional abuse, going through physical abuse, and, you know, some other triggering topics that'll be mentioned later in the podcast, inspired me to be a voice for myself at a time when I needed myself the most. Of course, there were times where I was down really bad and I was just like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. This thing called life is kicking my ass. But I pushed on and I persevered. The main thing that inspired me, though, was seeing how much courage that I actually had every time I looked in the mirror after experiencing something traumatic. Every time I looked at myself and I reminded myself that this was not who I was, the circumstances were not who I was, it was difficult. But I decided to sit in the uncomfortableness. And the funny thing was, I always thought that I was running away from it. But every time I looked in the mirror, I never was like, oh, this isn't a reality. I never lied and said, I'm not hurt. No, it was the opposite. I was in that mirror crying, saying, yeah, this shit hurt. This shit raw. And so because I was able to sit in my uncomfortableness and like literally just feel it, I knew that the only way to grow, the only way to heal, the only way to become present is to sit with those emotions and to be like, okay, I feel this way. And it's taken me a while to get to this point and say, okay, I'm going to sit in this emotion. I'm going to sit in this feeling and allow it to just be what it is. Of course, gradually it became to, okay, this is the feeling that I'm experiencing and this is why. But first you have to acknowledge it first. So the first thing, like I said, that inspired me was the power of my voice. And not just the power of my voice, but the power of my thoughts. So I've said before to those that are closest to me that I've come to the realization that in life, especially in healing, your mind is so powerful. I can't say that enough. I cannot stress that enough. Your mind is so powerful to the point where what you think becomes your reality. What you say becomes your reality. So when I found that me thinking negatively and me constantly dwelling on the past experiences that I had already endured, had already overcome, caused me more anxiety, caused me more pain, caused me more depression, I made a conscious decision to be mindful of my thoughts, be mindful of my voice, and be mindful of what I put out there in the world, especially with what I want to get back. So that being said, the big theme here, if you're catching my drift, is that There's power in what you say, and there's power in what you think. And so let's get uncomfortable. First episode is all about that. All about the power that exists from within, and understanding that you have a choice to choose life after trauma if you seek it. And that's what this podcast is all about. And I really hope that you took time to listen to this. I appreciate you for even tuning in, because I like to talk a mile a minute. But this has been Queen J with the first episode of Let's Get Uncomfortable. Peace. Thank you for seeing and hearing me.